And I'll start with the basics here. For someone who hasn't seen the press release, what news are you announcing today? I'm seeing a bit of that news, a few spoilers here, but what news are you announcing?
Yes. So obviously for the President's joint address tonight, I'm proud to welcome my guest tonight, Emily Schmidt from Sukup Manufacturing. We're focused here in Washington, D.C. on DOGE and finding those efficiencies in government, finding places to cut wasteful federal spending. That's something that Iowa knows a thing or two about. It's been my whole goal and mission to make D.C. run a little bit more like Iowa. And so Emily is actually leading the charge with Iowa DOGE and that task force back home.
Sweet, thank you very much. On federal Doge, you've previously said it's taking a sledgehammer to the administrative state. Your thoughts on that? If that's still the case, even though we're seeing some areas in which it may be demolishing a bit too much, some jobs being cut only to be reinstated, even funding halted from farmers, from the USDA, millions of dollars of funding as well. Just your thoughts on how that's progressing.
Yes. Well, and many of the initial pauses have already been restored, and that's one thing that we've been working through directly with our constituents in the district. We're encouraging people who have been affected, please reach out to us if we can be of service and get the right answers for you. But I think it's high time that we have this kind of a deep dive and a review on wasteful government spending. And what I have been very, very adamant about and working with the administration is if it's a good program and it's doing good things in our district, it should continue to be funded. If it's wasteful and we're sending money that doesn't advance Iowans or Americans' interests, that's where you're going to see members of Congress try to make sure that we are making those cuts permanent. But at the end of the day, it's our job to reflect the will of our constituents, and they want to see a smaller, smarter government.
Thank you. And to both of you, perhaps Emily as well, are you happy with the pace, the way things are going right now? Do you think more diligence should be put into kind of assessing what is necessary before it is cut rather than just bringing it back and facing interruptions at all?
Yeah. Well, I think our goal is always to, again, make this a focus on efficiency. We need the review, and I think when you talk about taking a sledgehammer to the administrative state and what we've seen for decades, it's taken us decades to get here. It is time for this review to happen, and it's also my job as a member of Congress now to come in and find ways to trim in a lasting way. And that's something that Iowa knows and does well. Iowa was doing DOGE before DC was doing DOGE, and that's where Emily and her work will help build on the efficiencies we've already been able to do under Kim Reynolds' leadership. You talk about efficiencies with departments. That's something that in the manufacturing space, they do it every single day.
Yeah, when asking about, why do this now or the pace, every day in manufacturing, we focus on the efficiencies, getting things through the plant and out to the customers. And, we just got to not accept status quo that government can't be inefficient either.
Thank you very much. Also on DOGE, I'm seeing reports of Representative Richard Hudson telling Republican lawmakers today to stop holding in-person town halls amid kind of a lot of angry backlash over these cuts. When protesters were at your doors, at the doors of your Waterloo office, you touted kind of the amount of town halls you've had, the amount of time you've spent with your constituents. Is this about to change, and are you going to follow this directive?
Yeah. I did 42 in-person town halls, one in every county that I represent, and I still plan to fulfill that promise because Iowans do value transparency and accessibility. What I don't want to see is the narrative get completely commandeered by paid protesters, which is what we're seeing at some of these other town halls. My constituents want to come and have an honest dialogue and conversation with me, and that's what I want too. So I'm going to continue to hold town halls, both in person and virtual. I've done dozens of telephone town halls as well, where we can reach ironically, thousands more people than doing those in-person town halls. And Iowans, I can tell you, having done more than 400 plus stops in the district in my first 2 terms, Iowans are hungry for these kinds of changes at the federal government. And in some cases these are paid protesters. That doesn't mean voices aren't important, but in some cases, the loudest voices are not the most voices. And that's something that I seriously take to heart.
Thank you very much. Not too many more questions. On tonight's joint session, you're calling this a State of the Union address in your press release. How do you find the State of the Union right now? A few things. The stock market is down. Trump-led gains have officially now been wiped out because of kind of the tariffs we're seeing. The Ukraine war seems no closer to being over. The Israeli-Hamas ceasefire seems to have broken down. Just your thoughts on the State of the Union at the moment.
Yeah. Well, you're picking a moment in time tonight, but I think when you look at the state of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 43 days under President Trump, you've neglected to mention what happened under the last 4 years of President Biden, which is the weakness on the global stage. I voted against $6 trillion in wasteful government spending that helped drive the inflation that Americans and Iowans have felt for the last 4 years. I had the displeasure of sitting through 4 of President Biden's State of the Union addresses, where it looked like he was just waking up from his afternoon nap. And let's be honest, he wasn't really running things in this country for 4 years. And the Iowans and Americans voted for a different direction for this country. President Trump has come in and tried to clean house. He's trying to make sure we're finding efficiencies for our federal government. He's trying to make sure we're respected again on the world stage. And the news broke today that Zelensky put out a statement saying he was ready to come back and talk about peace. So I reject the notion that things are in disarray. I think President Trump is doing everything he can to restore American energy independence, restore sovereignty at our southern border. Border crossings are down to around 8,000 for the entire month. Look at those numbers from a year ago, and it tells a startling difference in stories. So I think we're on a new American agenda here. We're going to make America great again, and I think we're going to hear more about the president's path for that tonight in his address.
Thank you. But I can imagine a few Iowans are scared when hearing trade wars, especially with tariffs going in today. They're kind of looming right now. China has imposed retaliatory tariffs on corn and soybeans. Last time this happened in 2018, the effect was so bad on Iowa farmers that they needed financial support, $12 billion in financial support, actually. What do you tell farmers right now who are scared of kind of a repeat of all that?
Yeah. Look at the last 4 years. We had a president who didn't value new trade relationships. Look at the last 4 years. We had a president who was weak and showed cowardice toward China. That's why we need President Trump to come in, again, with that blunt tool, the sledgehammer, and we need to bring them to the table. I'm focused as well on policy that's going to help us hold China accountable for their malign activities when it comes to trade. They've been trying to get around our trade laws for years. So also this week, I'm going to be announcing I'm reintroducing my trade crimes bill, which will develop a task force at Department of Justice to actually be able to go after these bad actors who are undercutting American jobs, American intellectual property, American manufacturing every single day. That's at the heart of what Americans want to see us, again, regain our footing on the global stage. President Trump's already got a trade representative in place. We need more markets, and that's what I continue to hear from my constituents. Again, more than 400 stops in the district, many of those with manufacturers or with our farmers and producers. And what they're telling us is they desperately want to sell their products around the world. So that's what I'm going to continue to push, and I'm proud that President Trump is at least trying to get people to the table.
Thank you. Just 2 more questions here. Like you mentioned, the mineral deal getting a bit closer to being signed, might even be announced tonight's address. Do you believe that this deal can happen? And do you think that the U.S. and Ukraine can come to this agreement without security guarantees?
Well, I certainly hope we can come to a peace agreement. This is Russia's war, and I think President Putin cannot be allowed to win this war. But at the end of the day, what I want is peace. I don't want to see Americans be involved in ongoing conflicts. It's also encouraging to me that Europe is finally coming to the table and stepping up their initiatives here. And that's something I want to see continue to happen. And I'm sorry, I'm being told I have to wrap because we have another interview. So.
Sounds all good. Last one quickly. Are you concerned about kind of a repetition of these hostilities if this deal does not include security guarantees? Iowans paid the price at the pump when this war started. Could we see a cessation of hostilities and hostilities picking back up the next day if this deal doesn't have security guarantees?
Well, what I'm focused on is American energy independence as a bigger part of that conversation. And so we cannot allow our adversaries around the world to continue to undermine the United States, whether it's with oil or whether it's with trade. So President Trump's going to focus on positive trade for the United States, protecting American interests, and then focusing on unleashing American energy independence. And that's the policy I will continue to support.
Thank you both for your time. Good luck today. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.